Hey everybody, it's Dennis again. So today, let's talk about the Serenity Prayer. And why do we have this prayer among so many thousands of other prayers that there could be? The Serenity Prayer seems to land on us. It's a good question, and we do use it the most. It is sort of associated with recovery, and I'm going to tell you why. First, let's say the prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, why is this for us? Because this is what we're trying to accomplish. These really three things that are going on in this. One is serenity, the next is courage, and the next is wisdom. And so the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. This is really step one. This is accepting that you're an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever. It is that acceptance. And why do you need serenity? Because you need the serenity. You need to have this as a very calm, decisive moment in your life where you come and say, this is who I am. It is the fact. It is who you are. You cannot change who you are in this. So coming to grips with it and accepting it is super important. And the serenity sort of keeps it as a total blanket statement for you. Because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I'm an alcoholic Monday morning when your head is really big and you're struggling, but then Friday afternoon, maybe I was a little out of hand there when I thought that. Maybe, I was being a little rash. So the serenity is really coming to that conclusion. This is who I am. I am an alcoholic. I cannot change that. This is what I have to live with. Now, that's really big. That's the first part, right? And this is why it's for us mostly. This is why it's associated to us, because that first big step saying this is who I am and this is what it's all about, that I'm an alcoholic, okay? So that's the first part, right? But then the courage to change the things I can. This is another giant part of recovery because the change that you have to make is in your behavior. So the courage to change the things you can is that stop drinking, stop using, right? That's the courage to change the things you can. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage. If you followed my story earlier on in these recordings, you'd hear that it took me 3 years in AA before I actually stopped drinking. And it was because I was a coward. I hate using that word because it sounds so extreme, but I was afraid. I was petrified of sobriety. It scared the living daylights out of me. Was the idea of going through a day without a drink scared me more than anything. And that was the truth. And the courage to stop drinking, the thing that was the essence of my life, or so I thought, was a gigantic leap. And I did make it, but it took a long time for me to build up that courage to be with a community of other people who are doing the same thing or have done the same thing, and then realizing maybe I can do it. If they can do it, maybe I can do it. And I got that courage and I did put it down. That's super important, right? That courage to change the things you can change. You can change your behavior. Some of you are thinking you cannot change. Some of you are thinking you can. But behavior is really the first thing where you have agency, where you can actually stop doing something or start doing something by making that physical change in your behavior. So that's the courage, right? The courage to change the things you can. Then the wisdom to know the difference. And this is where it gets a little more complicated. Not complicated. We complicate things needlessly, right? But to know those things in your life that you really have no control over, and those things that you do, that's a big thing that takes some sobriety, some maturity that comes through sobriety. Sobriety and maturity are kind of like that. As you learn the freedom that you have in not being addicted anymore, you will see that there's the things that you can change, the things you cannot change, and knowing that difference, right? Because you don't want to try to change the things you can't, because that's a disaster. or just say, oh, I can't change the things that you can, because that's another disaster, because you need to actually say, this I can do today, right? Even as a small thing, today I'm going to say a prayer, and that's a behavior change that you can make. But then you can also say, I am an alcoholic, and I am not able to change this today. The alcoholism I'll never be able to change, but some things you will change in your thinking, but that takes, time. But for today, this is what I cannot change, and this is what I can change, and this is what I'm going to change. So that's why it's very specific to us. Now, we tend to blanket it throughout our lives, which is not a bad thing at all, right? To go through life and understand what you can and cannot change is super important in having a successful life. And being the serenity, right, is in the acceptance, the courage in the changing, and the wisdom. Those three things are super great to have. If you can get the serenity and the courage and the wisdom, those are great things to pray for. And those are what you're praying for. You're not praying for the object of it, right? You're not praying for the acceptance. You're praying for the serenity to get that acceptance. So that's really important to understand. You are praying for serenity, courage, and wisdom, and that's what this is needed in sobriety. Thanks, and I hope you find this useful, and feel free to leave me some comments, and I hope you have a good day.